Before you take that big step to buying a home, open your email and drop us your details. We'll make sure you get the top choices in any market in your budget, backed with demand and supply data, location ratings, and of course, project credentials. Right now, though, we're going to discuss GST on under construction flats, which has been causing quite a bit of heartburn amongst buyers. Nishant Shah, partner at Economic Laws Practice, joins us to take our viewer questions. Nishant, thank you very much and good to have you with us.
Thank you.
All right, let's hop across now to Sanjay Khatri, who's joining us from Singapore. Sanjay, hi. Go ahead with your question.
Hi. So, hi Nishant. My question is, I have recently booked a flat in Highmont, Hinjawadi Phase 2. Now, actually, it's in under construction property, and the builder is offering me a 3 BHK flat on 80.5 lakhs. Now, the query here is, because I kept hearing that the GST, the taxation has come up in the effect, and then builders are passing the benefits to them. However, when I checked with the builder, he's saying that he's passing the benefit to me, but he's he's increasing the floor price. On the other hand, if I'm just asking him that if he's just telling me to pay the 12% of GST, then he's saying, okay, I'll reduce the price of per square feet floor price. So my question here is whether I'm getting the GST benefits or not. On the one hand, he is raising the floor price and reducing the GST to 6%. On the other hand, on force, he is just taking 12% on the GST and reducing the prices. So he's giving me, in a nutshell, he's giving me two prices of the same property.
Sanjay, yes, I've got your question. In fact, Nishant's also gone through it in detail. Nishant, I'm even wondering why developers are giving these two options, because honestly, as per law, you have to charge 12%. You can't charge a 6% GST and say, hey, my basic sale price will be higher, and if I charge you 12% GST, my basic sale price will be lower. This is kind of not even legal, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, GST is leviable at 18%, but there is a reduction for the value of land, which has been deemed to be 33%, and therefore the effective rate comes to 12%. Now, because they are now moving into GST, they will be eligible for certain credits, which will help them to reduce the floor price. And therefore, the option of charging 12% with a reduced floor price is the appropriate one. Now, what happens is that some part payment must have been made earlier, some part payment is being made later on. In the earlier regime, the total levy was coming to 4.5% of service tax plus a 1% of VAT, typically in most of the states. VAT is a state-specific subject. And therefore, the total burden was coming to 5.5%, which is now going to 12%. So therefore, there is an increase of about 6.5%. So what the builder is trying to say is that one is, ideally, he should be, every invoice as per the rules of GST is required to be levying a 12%, and therefore whatever credit he's getting will be the reduction, which is the appropriate methodology. The alternate that he's offering is saying that, okay, I'll keep my burden as the same which it was earlier, which is around 6%. But he's saying I'll increase the floor price, which means he's saying that I'll have to pay to the government full 12%, but I'm recovering from you the balance of the 6% through the floor price, which actually is not an appropriate depiction of the sale price on the invoice. So in both the scenarios, but what is important for Sanjay to see is that the builder is actually passing on the benefits arising to him, because he's obligated to do that under the GST regulations. So what is important for him is to ensure that the credit arising to the builder is being passed on to Sanjay. My view would be that the 12% with Sorry.
That's very hard, isn't it, sitting in Singapore? How does he even get access to that sort of information? Even builders say they're still a bit confused about what input credits are they likely to get or could claim, especially where some of the buildings have already been 50% completed and the rest are still undergoing construction.
Yeah, so there is an implication, and ideally the builders are expected to be doing an appropriate calculation of identifying how much is to be completed post the GST regime, calculating the credit arising because of that, and then passing on to the customers. It is a little complex, and for a customer to be sitting there and identifying how much the builder has passed on to him is even more complex. More so, the builder, the credit that he's getting is subject to what is the credit being passed on by his vendors. Now, a builder has a lot of supply suppliers. He may have an electrician guy, he may have a civil contractor, various others. Each of those guys are also benefited because of GST. Now, they pass on to the builder, and the builder thereafter passes on to the customer. So it is complex. But to conclude on Sanjay's query, I would say that 12% with a reduction in the price is the more appropriate methodology.
I would say that, Sanjay, stay on the right side of the law, just pay 12% and reduced basic per square foot price. In fact, you know, if there is a minor adjustment, you can also write into the builder and say, I hope that you're passing on all input credits to me, and let him reply and have that formal email with you so that tomorrow you can even take that up in case you have a question in terms of whether he's passed those benefits or not. All right, let's get in our next query. Again, a GST. Sujit Vaikule from Pune has asked, I booked an under construction flat before the launch of GST. My question is GST applicable to my flat because my agreement was done before the launch of GST? Nishant, this is a question which comes to us almost every week. I mean, people are still bewildered on why should they be charged GST when the agreement was signed way before it.
Absolutely. So, you know, the answer is this way, that GST is applicable on supply. Now, supply, especially in case of these kind of contracts, which are ongoing contracts, is to be determined based on when the execution is carried out, the invoice is raised, and the payment is received. If 2 out of these 3 are happening post GST, then on that element, the GST becomes applicable, to keep it in simple terms. Therefore, you know, in case of Sujit, to answer his question specifically, that amount which he paid at the time of booking, because the fact that 50% was completed, he must have paid certain amount, that would not be liable to GST. That would be liable to the old tax, which was the VAT and the service tax. The remaining element of payment that he is making post GST, the invoice is being raised by the builder post GST, and the payment by him is being made post GST, and therefore GST will become applicable on that amount, because the supply will be construed to have taken place later on, even though the agreement was signed prior. So therefore, I think the builder is right in charging on the remaining amount a GST at 12%. But here again, Sujit should ensure that the credit accruing to the builder is being passed on to him. Which
essentially means, Sujit, that you have to make sure that the overall cost of the flat also gets an adjustment and is brought down, because you shouldn't be paying both GST plus the same price for the flat that you were paying before GST became applicable. So the portion which is still not completed and the bills which are coming to you must be a little bit reduced. Again, just put it on email, get a proper formal reply from the builder that he is passing on input credits to you. Finally, this email again on GST, Anup from Chennai says he had booked one apartment 2 years ago under the 1090 scheme. Now this is where the maximum trouble is happening when it comes to GST, wherein he had to pay 10% of the remaining on possession. But guess what? The builder claims, Nishant, in these cases that, look, I've already constructed 90%. Where am I going to get input credit on it? But now I have to charge GST. Now, how fair is that? And what is the legal position here for both the builder and the buyer?
Yeah, so, you know, again, in case of Anup, what is happening, he's again signed it earlier. The builder is charging a certain amount, and builder is right in saying that, you know, he's not going to be getting credit on those elements. Now, there is one tweak in the law which says that when the supply is made, so where the builder has procured certain, say, cement, steel, etc., has kept it in stock and is going to be using it later, if he has invoices, those based on those invoices which are less than 1 year old, he can still take credit. So if those credits are rising, he would still be in a position to pass on certain benefit to Anup in this case, because the 90%, even though the construction has been completed, the supply will be construed as being happening in GST. Therefore, he will have no option but to charge a 12% on the balance amount that he is recovering in the post-GST scenario. The only facilitation that he can pass on is whatever credits that accrue to him. Now, if just 10% is remaining, the 10% actual execution would result into certain credit, and certain stocks which he has, for which he has invoices, those also credits he may be able to garner and take it in the transitional credit which provisions exist in the GST law. So that is the benefit that he may be able to pass on to Anup.
So it's only 1 year. Whatever cement or materials you've used in the last 1 year, or the services of, let's say, electricians, plumbers you've used, you can offset as input credit. But anything before 1 year, then of course it can't be credited. But Nishant, thank you very much for clarifying. It's crystal clear to us on how GST is going to work for home buyers. Of course, those who have to now bear that 12% extra cost without getting adequate input credits will feel that pinch. Builders, of course, are not ensuring that they don't enhance the cost or price of the flat because nothing's selling, so they don't want to take the prices up anymore. Nishant, pleasure to have you with us. I also have to say goodbye to Samir because we were hoping to take another buyer question, but that's for next week. It's a wrap from us, and I'll be back with you same time next week. Thanks so much for joining me.